Hey there. Um, I'm sorry if the heater or the dog is distracting during this. It's just, I was cold, and I kind of, like, he wanted to come in, and it would have been, like, scratching for, like, 20 minutes if I didn't let him in, and it's really comforting to have him here while I tell my story. Um, I kind of don't want to give my name because, reasons, but I thought with the whole give a trigger warning before I tell my story, I keep forgetting to. This might trigger some people because there is some like sexual and violent content. If you were a victim of I don't know, if you feel like hearing about, I mean, you're going to see what is in the title. If you feel like reading something or hearing something associated with that would trigger you, I would just suggest clicking off. I don't want to trigger anyone. I'm saying this is someone with PTSD, partially from this experience, partially from some other things that happened afterwards. So anyway, now that that's all out of the way, I wanted to tell my story. I just feel like even though it's been really difficult for me, it's important for me to get it out there, and it's also important for me to heal. Because I've been through so much after this all happened. I dealt with an eating disorder. Actually, I'm just still recovering from an eating disorder. I became an alcoholic for a while. Even though I've been enormously successful in some ways, it's just, in my career and in other things, it's just been really difficult to get over this, for obvious reasons you're going to see. So, yeah, I just really felt like it was important to tell my story, both for my own healing and for, other people to know, like, especially if you're, like, 13 or 14 and you're watching this, which, I mean, maybe watch this with an adult, but it's important to know the things that can happen when you let an older person take advantage of you. This whole situation with that, I don't even want to give her a name because I don't want to give her any publicity, but that, like, Ariane or something, the 18-year-old girl dating the 13-year-old guy that's going around right now, it came back. Philip DeFranco had talked about it some months ago, and then now a lot of the drama channels are covering it again because they was like, wait, they're still dating. Out of the times when an older person dates a much younger person, especially if that younger person is below the age of consent, it's not for good reasons. And that's kind of the situation I was in. I'm sorry I keep readjusting. I'm a very nervous person. But yeah, it's not for good reasons. If you want to date someone that much, let me just get in frame. If you want to date someone that much older than you, it's just not a good idea. I'm going to be honest with you, this guy was not, he was under 18, and I was, about 12 when I met him, and then 13 when we started dating. He was under 18 by a year, so he was 17. So it was still legal what we were doing, I think, in my state. But, and especially since we didn't do anything sexual until I was 17, which is fine in my state. Well, we did some sexual things, but okay, yeah, I already gave the trigger warning. We did some sexual things before I was 17. We didn't do any penetration until I was 17. So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to tell a horrific fucking story on YouTube, for no other reason other than I feel like other people should hear it, and maybe it can help someone, and maybe it'll help me get past this, because right now it's like, well, I'll get back into that at the end of the story. Okay, I feel like looking at myself in the camera is, like, tripping me out. Usually when I talk about things like this, it's nice to disassociate and pretend, like, I almost just pretend it happened to somebody else, because it was so long ago, and, now I'm 30, it was so long ago, and I just feel like if I disassociate, it's more comfortable. It's like, oh, these horrible things happened to somebody else. They didn't happen to a successful, worldly woman, because it's hard to believe I ever was this naive and stupid. So I met this guy when we were both going to a 7 through 12 school in the U.S. He was in 12th grade, I was in 7th grade. I saw him, he dressed very unusually. He would wear, like, trench coats and things like that. This was right after Columbine, by the way, but the school didn't really, like, flag that because it was like an alternative kind of a school. It really was supposed to help the people who had different like learning issues, things like that. So, but they were also a very interesting school in that their personal philosophy sort of plays into the curriculum. So I was on the service committee, and this guy had sort of caught my eye in the background, but I had a crush on a guy my own age, and then I found out he had a girlfriend, so I thought, oh crap, I was 12 going on 13, I better get myself a boyfriend, you know, as we all do, because we know that's the most important thing. And now I want to, let me just quickly add in here, ladies and guys, being single is some of the most fun you're going to have in your life, so enjoy it even when you are young. But yeah, and so he had sort of caught my eye. I mean, the guy who was like a skater in my own age was definitely more like my speed, but I actually was dating one of my best friends, and I didn't know until I like asked. I said to her like, "Oh, he's really hot. I really like when I ask him out," and she was like, "That's my boyfriend." And I just said I was on that committee to like do certain activities, even though I was like only like 12 going on 13. So I turned 13. I'm arranging this trip where we're all going to go, and it's like service to the community. So what I wanted to go on particularly was the Arboretum, because I've always been really into nature. Being out in nature makes me feel good. I'm an earth sign, so I'm not really that into astrology. I just thought that was funny to add in. Oh, you gotta find the humor where you can on this trip. And I wanted to do it in an arboretum, so we go, and there were some different trips you could pick from to, like, you know, pick cans up in the neighborhood or what have you. So this guy, the older guy, decides to go on the trip, and we actually, like, it's so funny because all the comments about this 18 and 13-year-old, it's like, well, what do they have to talk about? It's like, we were talking the entire time about, like, history and mythology, because I was really into those at that age, and I was actually, like, at a... Like, I've never been naturally gifted at math. That's something I've had to work at in my professional career, but in terms of reading, I was at a college age reading comprehension at 12. We were being flirtatious, I guess. I don't know if maybe I was misinterpreting it, because I was 13, we were being flirtatious. And it was clear to me that he was interested in me. Got off the trip, I ended up slipping a note in his locker, basically being like, "You are really cute, and I really have a crush on you." Basically, he put a note in my locker then after that saying, "Thank you, I find it really flattering, but you are too young for me." And I really wish it had ended there, because I would have just been like, haha, wasn't that a crazy story? I wrote a note back and like, "I really, really like you." And I don't know how I convinced him, but maybe he was easy to convince, or maybe he was just giving I actually just thought of this, maybe he was just giving the impression of, oh, I don't really want to, and then if I was going to push further, he would be like, okay, I'll go along with this. But yeah, we ended up dating, and I was, okay, at this point I was 13, and he was 17. Basically, the school was like, oh my god, what the fuck? Everybody was, I spoke to the guidance counselor multiple times. If you ask where my parents were, they were in the middle of getting a really contentious divorce. I was the least problematic of all children, even though I was going to the school for having some learning difficulties with like concentration, things like that. They weren't really paying attention to me, and I asked my mother later, I asked her, like, why did you let me do this? And it was basically because we thought you were going to do it anyway, even if we told you no. Honestly, I'm not sure what I would have done at 13 years old. Pretty rebellious little child, but I also was a goody two-shoes in some ways, so I don't know if I would have disobeyed them and still dated him anyway. But in any case, the relationship went on. The guidance counselor basically said, well, since you're not doing anything sexual, there's nothing we can do about this. I was very Christian at the time, so I wasn't going to do anything sexual with anybody anyway. He was okay with that. I don't know if he was having sex with other people or what was going on, because I was, 13. I don't really understand how any of this works at this point. We're official, like we were a couple, and like everybody had problems with it, which totally understand. I would have been screaming, but like the teachers all knew, everybody all knew, nobody could do anything because we're not having sex, right? So then prom comes along, and he wants to take me as his date. I want to be his date, and the school like was freaking out. Everyone was like, oh my god, all the seniors were protesting it, but we got to go because I don't know why the school let us do this. But anyway, went to prom at 13. crazy fucking story, right? Okay, it gets weirder. It gets a lot fucking weirder than that. At the end of the school year, he goes to study abroad. I just, and basically, I hadn't really gotten a good impression of, like, the kind of person he was from being 13 years old and in love with him. It was mostly just like, I love you so much, I love you so much, and, like, not really analyzing his character or motives or anything like that. And he obviously didn't try anything sexual with me when I was 13. I just want to make that clear. So he goes abroad for his first year of college. He actually goes abroad for the first 3 years of his college education, so he was abroad for a lot of that. And I was still in high school. But we were still together. I think I wanted to say I had a boyfriend without having to worry about actually having a boyfriend. So having a long-distance relationship for me was like, oh, I miss him so much, and then I could be all romantic and sad. He was not there, and he would give me like a $10 piece of jewelry when he came back, and I was like, oh my god, thank you, you love me so much. And we would talk on the phone once in a while. Honestly, it was just like free cell phones. The whole dynamic of having a long distance relationship was crazy. But we did it. I'm sorry, I hope none of this comes off as making this glamorous, because it was not glamorous in any way, shape, or form. I just want to make that clear, and you're going to see that as we go along in this. I don't know how long this fucking video is going to be. I'm going to have to edit the shit out of it, but it's still going to be fucking long. He comes back for the summer. We did get a little bit more sexual, like, in terms of, like, making out, groping, things like that, but we didn't, like, I didn't give him oral sex or anything like that because I was a good Christian girl. Atheist now, but I was a good Christian girl at the time. So yeah, that was basically the only reason. I don't know if he would have protested if I had done something like that, or if I had, been really encouraging in terms of doing stuff like that. But so he started to really freak me out a little bit in terms of the things he was saying and doing. I got a really good glimpse into his character because he gave me a book on a Roman dictator and said he wanted to be just like him. This dictator Sulla, in case Sulla was known for nailing lists of people he wanted murdered to the Forum doors. So, yeah, not a good guy. Killed a lot of people up on his rise to power. And he also, like, started to say some things that were kind of weird in terms of, like, okay, well, I want to be a dictator, but you can't tell anyone. And if you tell anyone, I'm going to kill you. So I couldn't tell anybody in terms of the things he was saying to me, the things he was, like, the concerns I had. And also, it wasn't like he was voicing anything that was, like, illegal. It was just fucking crazy. So, yeah. Then he goes away to school again. Even at 13, or 14, I should have been like, this is fucking crazy. Let me break up with this dude, and maybe things would have been okay. And I want to shake myself and be like, no. Or maybe he would have murdered me. Who knows? Because we're going to find out. He got fucking crazy. Yeah, so 15, he goes away to school again. I'm in high school. Got a lot of teasing from my peers about this relationship, which, I mean, I'm lucky that's all I had to deal with in terms of, like, I wish that, let me rephrase that. I wish that had been the extent of the issues I dealt with dating an older person at, like, 14 or 15 and 16 and 17 and 18 and 13 and 19. So 15, he goes back to school. I go back to school. We still talk all the time. We're still dating. Starting to doubt my faith a little bit, but pulling in harder because I'm starting to doubt my faith. So I was really more focused on the Bible and Jesus because I guess I was just floundering. I was just looking for something. And then I started to, like, freak out because I was thinking, like, oh, God doesn't want me to be in this relationship. Make of that what you will. I'm an atheist now, but, that's a crazy thought to have. But I somehow justified it to myself by having a vision. I don't know, I was fucking psychotic. And I don't mean that as a slur, I'm sorry. So I'm going to, like, Bible camps and shit. I don't really have too much time to think about, like, my worries with him and the whole fucking becoming a dictator thing. I'm like, well, I guess since he's gonna kill me if I say anything, I better not say anything. And so I think when he came back, my Christian, like, you know, I felt like I needed to be compassionate as a Christian. When he came back and I was sort of like, you don't need to do any of this, you know, dictator stuff. And he was like, well, not only do I want to be a dictator, I'm gonna kill just anybody I feel like it. And also, I don't like some of your family members, and let me kill some of them. So I basically would plead with him not to do this all the time. And I think since he would, like, giggle and shit, I think he really got off on that. And now, talking to myself, I want to scream, like, why the fuck were you begging him when this is literally feeding the sadistic part of him? And I think, I don't know, it's like part of me wonders if maybe I hadn't done this, maybe he wouldn't have, I don't know, maybe me being a natural, like, you know, I am a masochist, maybe me being a masochist really did feed into this, and at this point it was completely unknowing, but I didn't, and it felt like God was trying to compel me to tell someone, but at the same time, I couldn't tell anyone. I felt like he would kill me if I told anyone, and kill my family anyway, if I told anyone, so it was like, because it was also just words, and I didn't know that, like, you know, it was just, he would sometimes email these things to me, and he would also sometimes just speak these things to me. I really wish I had kept all of those emails, but I was just like, well, the most I could probably get is, like, a restraining order from this guy, and I really love him also still, because I'm fucking insane. So it's just a lot of mixed things, and I'm still fucking 15 years old, by the way, at this point, so there are some parts of my story that I'm really ashamed of, and that's one of them, but, yeah. So, and it is weird, because as I tell this story, it's like I am disassociating from who that person was, because it was so long ago, it was a different me entirely, and I can't understand myself, but at the end of the day, this is what happened, and I need to tell it, because I need to be free of it. This guy gets out of prison in a day, by the way, just in case you're wondering, so I really just wanted to make sure this was on tape before he gets out. You know, anyway, I don't want to get too dark. He goes, you know, and we see each other during the winter breaks and stuff during this, but I also really don't have, like, an idea of, like, how serious he is about this shit. There's the human compulsion to gloss it over and be like, oh, it wasn't really that bad, but I need to tell the whole story if I'm going to be free of it. That's just the way it is. So, I'm 16. He goes away to school. I go back to school. Still, there's the teasing from the peers. There's a lot of implications of, are you cheating on me? And he's cheating on you. So I asked him that a couple of times, and he was like, no. Honestly, I don't give a shit at this point if he was cheating on me or not. I'm sorry. I just feel so, like, physically uncomfortable and upset telling this story. And as we get closer and I know what's going to come, it's, like, harder. He's emailing me a lot more, and we're talking on the phone a lot more when I'm 16. I had just gone through something really traumatic in my life that didn't involve him. My stepmother and my dad separated, and we're working on getting a divorce. My dad forced me to move with him because my stepmother technically had no parental rights over me, even though we were closer and my dad was addicted to drugs. Sort of leaned on him a lot during this period, and we got closer. I was still very religious at the beginning of being 16, but that was about to change. I had been dissatisfied with some of the answers I had been given about why the Bible was the way it was when I was like 13, 14, and 15, it had been kind of building up in me. So when I was 16, I was just like, I don't really know if I believe in God. So I sort of went straight from evangelical Christian to agnostic, and it felt like I was going to hell going through that process, and maybe I'll make a video about that at some point. So I really was leaning on him. throughout this entire thing. I think part of the reason I became an agnostic was honestly to have sex too. I'm gonna keep it 100% real here. I wanted to have sex with him. My hormones were going crazy. You know, I've always been a very, like, well, when I was younger, I was a very, like, sexualized person. So when I was 16 and he was, how old would he be then? 21? No. 4 years older than me. I'm 16. I can't do math. He's 20. So yeah, we did some sexual things when I was 16 and he was 20. I think I did give him head. I think I did, like, we would just, like, dry hump and stuff. So yeah, actually the dry humping began when I was 14, so, it's really, like, embarrassing to tell this whole thing, and, like, really, I don't know, I keep saying this, but it's because I, like, need to take a second to, like, breathe and get through this and just tell it, get it the fuck out there. So, 16's when the threats about my family really started getting crazy and out of control, and, he stayed with me when we were in, threatened to drown my sister multiple times. Every time I talked him out of it. I remember once we were, like, you know, kind of we're doing the dry humping thing to completion for him. So, I got him aroused rather than get him to be distracted from thinking about killing my sister. I don't know why my young siblings bothered him so much. I think what he wanted was for my family to be gone so that he could have complete control over me if I was honest. An incredible amount of guilt to my family, and I don't think I've ever told them this because it was too hard. I've hinted at it many times. It's just, thank God nobody lives in the same country as they did now. It's just, like, so much easier that way. I'm so sorry. If you're watching this right now, I'm so sorry that I did not tell you, but I thought that he was going to kill me and kill you guys just because I was terrified of him. At the same time that I was fascinated by him, I was terrified of him. My first sexual attraction was to Darth Vader in the original Star Wars series. I don't know what makes me tick. I don't know why I am the way I am. Thank God. It was like doing a drug. It was like a rush. Like, I never wanted him to harm anyone. Let me just be clear. I never wanted anything to ever happen. No, it's not what I wanted. And I'm sorry, I'm just, like, hitting a brick wall because it gets worse as I go. So when I was 17, like, he told me he wanted to do it and he had planned to do it, but then I think he chickened out at the last moment and was like, oh no, I'm not gonna. When I say do it, I mean he wanted to kill my entire fucking family. And I begged him not to the whole time. I was begging him not to. But I had nothing. It was all told to me verbally at this point. We weren't really emailing anymore because I think he knew that if I had that evidence, he could get in big trouble. So he would tell me these things verbally. So I would beg him not to, and he would just laugh. Like, it was the same sick game where I was the masochist feeding the sadist. And that was inadvertent. I didn't want to feed him in that way. Because I hated everything he was doing, and I hated everything he talked about. But I was still in love with him and still drawn to him, and I don't know why I am the way that I am. I'm trying so hard not to cry. I've made this video so many times crying, and it's just, I don't get through 6 minutes of it. Because, you know, I become a blubbering, incomprehensible wreck. So yeah, it's just important for me to tell the entire truth to the world. I just want everybody to know that this is, you might not know my name, but this is who I am. This is my story. These are things that can happen if you get involved with a psychopath, or if you're too young and you get involved with someone who's older and can influence you. It's just like, I would have so much rather had been dating someone at 11 who was 11, because at least we wouldn't have been fucking, worrying about him killing my parents and me having to talk him out of it. So at 17, I started to be like, okay, what I have to do is get him away from my family at all costs. So basically, I would go and be secretly visiting him. I would go to his apartment. Not his apartment, he lived with his parents. I would go take the bus to his apartment. When I wasn't supposed to be there, I'd skip school and do that. I would meet him at hotels and have sex. Just like anything to keep him away from my family. And then when he was there, I was always like, let's go to the woods, let's go anywhere where we're not around my family. My family and I really started to grow distant too during this time. I don't know if it was him telling me that they were horrible people and me believing it. I do think I was dealing with some Stockholm syndrome, but I don't think that I fully became the person that he thought I was. I don't think I was indoctrinated the way he thought I was. So, sorry. I'm just trying to get through this part of the story because it's really getting fucking deep. Yeah, thank God I talked him out of killing my family. We were working on getting him away from my family so he wasn't, so that there wasn't an opportunity, basically. Even though I felt like he could have still shown up in the night and done something and made it look like, I don't know what he would have made it look like. He always told me he didn't want me to know his plan. Everything was always about him. He's been diagnosed with narcissism since then. He's a psychopath. He's literally a psychopath. He's convinced that, he is God, basically. That he's smarter than everyone, that he can outsmart the cops. That's part of what got him caught. He had planned to kill my family, didn't go through with it. Verbally. And I felt like I wanted to go to the cops too, but what were they going to do? The most they could do was issue me an order of protection, and I didn't even have anything on paper, any evidence that he was saying these things or doing these things. So I didn't feel like the law was on my side, even if there were many times I thought, I gotta get the fuck out of this relationship, and would have really, freak outs about this. But at the end of the day, that was, there was nothing I could do. I've turned my life around in terms of, who I am as a person. I know who I am now. I'm not some brainwashed victim anymore. So when I turned 18, I'm in 12th grade, which is weird, but I was a year behind senior year when I was 18. We were still dating. School thought it was fucking weird because we'd been together forever. I had transferred school multiple times also during this. They all, didn't do anything, and they all kind of knew about this, but they, as far as I knew, they knew we didn't do anything sexual until I was 18. So, we're still seeing each other when I'm 18. I'm hanging out with him all the time. Now I'm going over to his house, basically after school every day, when I'm not working. I'm working a lot. I forgot to mention, when I was 17, when I was 16, I started working in a shoe store, and I was giving him half my earnings. I don't know why. I think it was, to appease him for the fact that I was working, but anyway. So, that had been going on, and that was still going on at this point. So, I was working a fucking lot. So, I think it was a good way for me to distract, too, because it was almost like this isn't happening. I was by the time I was 18, I was pretty fully indoctrinated and would do almost anything he said. There were some things I balked at, but yeah, no, I would do a lot of things that he said. But I still, in a weird way, had my limits, and I knew that my family was important to me, so I needed to get him the fuck away from them. So, 18, when I graduated from high school later in the year, I was like, okay, let's move. So, we wanted to do it as well, so it worked out, we thought it would work out at the time. And to be honest, I just wanted him to fuck like my family. I didn't give a fuck how far away we had to move. I just felt like I was having a mental breakdown every day, talking about it, killing people, talking about it. It was just like, he would tell me about how fun it would be to kill certain family members of mine, and I was just expected to listen and be like, yeah, that's great. Like, to be honest, I would say anything to shut him up at this point. I just wanted it over, and I knew he was hopefully too cowardly to actually do anything. Kind of what I was counting on, but at the same time, I didn't want to risk it, so I was like, okay, live with his, and went to X Community College. I lived in a dorm and went to X Community College. Sorry, I didn't add that in. So he would come visit me there, and I was just like, okay, thank fuck he's away from my family. I just didn't want him there. So I luckily got to live in a dorm, even though it was community college, because there was like an international students dorm in my local city. So it was expensive as fuck, and I couldn't afford to live there. So then after that semester was over, I was like, let's go to this state and live with, well, he had actually been suggesting it for some time. I agreed with him. It was, let's go to this state and live with this relative. And I was just like, thank God we won't even have to visit my family. We can just stay the fuck away from them, and then that way they'll never be hurt, and I'll never have to worry about it. Because I really thought, like, if we can just get away, he'll not think about that anymore. So, September of that year when I'm going to community college, I turned 19. He honestly didn't want me to be going to school. He thought it'd be better if I was just like a housewife, but he didn't really stop me. I think he wanted, I had always wanted to be a writer, so he encouraged that, because he wanted me to write like these big Colleen McCullough type novels. And that was what I was going to do, because he wanted me to be home all the time. He didn't want me to be working outside the house. Another way of controlling your victims, by the way. Now I do the fuck whatever I want. And I actually, this ended up really ruining my future relationships, because whenever a guy would suggest maybe I should do this or do anything, it instantly became, this is mansplaining and you're trying to control me, because I didn't know how normal human interactions work. So if I wanted to work 70 hours a week and my partner had an objection to it, he's trying to control me and being crazy. But anyway, so we go to X state. I start looking for a job there, and I've been in a community college for about a week when he gets into a fight with a relative that we're living with. This relative is very elderly and very wealthy. So he tells me, I'm going to change his will, and then I'm going to kill him. And I said, okay. Because at this point, he had made so many threats, like, I'm going to drown your sister in the bathtub, I'm going to murder your entire family overnight, or something like that. I just thought he wasn't going to do it. I mean, part of me was like, well, this seems more serious than the other times, but I was just like, you know, I could call the police and tell them, but what are they going to do? Like, there's no way to protect me from getting killed, from telling his secrets like he's always told me. He did it. He did it, and the next, I'm not going to describe the way that he did it, because I feel like that doesn't add anything to the story. It did give me PTSD, and I feel completely horrible for the relative that it happened to. I was selfish, and in a way I was just glad it wasn't my family. Because there was a part of me inside that had always known that if he did something like this, then I would finally be able to tell the police my story, and then I would be safe, and my family would be safe. But I was wrong. So I got in there. He told me, like, don't, so the coroner's office or whatever came, and they knew it was a murder immediately, so they basically sent over the cops. The cops, like, take us in separate cars to the station, and the last time I remember being with him was in the basement of that house, big house. Yeah, I'm like, don't say anything. Just if you don't talk, then they can't pin anything. on anybody. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. So we get to the police, and I'm, at first I'm listening to what he said, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know what happened. Like, maybe this happened, maybe that happened. And they're like, you're not the kind of girl to get mixed up in something like this. Like, you should tell us what really happened. So I was like, okay. Oh, but before they said that, they did say, he's telling us you did it. I don't know if that was a lie. I don't know if that was the truth. I don't know if that's his way of getting rid of me or getting himself out of a bind because they knew it was him and he had been really fucking stupid. But, yeah, so I told them he did it. And I told them what I suspected he did. And unfortunately, they were unable to find the murder weapon. I honestly do not know where it is. I do not know where the clothes are. They weren't able to find the clothes that were probably soaked with blood after he did that. And because the house was pretty, it was like a hoarder house, even though it was a nice mansion and everything. And it's just like, there was so much shit. So they weren't able to, like, they searched everything and they weren't able to find either of those things. I don't know where he hid them. He didn't tell me. This is one of the things, like, he doesn't fully communicate his plan to you. He just tells you to terrify you and then says, like, oh, it's going to be one day. Like, oh, it's going to be a week from now. This time he told me it's going to be tonight. I've been over so many therapists over, like, could I have done something different? Like, how could I have fixed this? How could I have prevented this from happening? Because I'm really an analytical person, and it's like, I just, and it's always, the answer is always no. There's nothing you could have done to prevent this. And I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if that's real, but that's always the answer I've gotten when I've told this exact story to everybody. So if you look at me and you see me as guilty here, that's okay. Like, that's okay to me. Because I see where you're coming from, because emotionally I feel guilty. In my heart, it feels like I allowed this to happen, but I know that this person was a ticking time bomb, and I was just along for the ride since I was 13 years old. Since I was 12 when I first saw him, I was just along for the ride, and even though I did my own amount of finagling to be in the relationship, like telling him, like, oh, we won't have sex, we'll just be together, and like, I feel like maybe he really did want this and just wanted someone to come along and to worship him, basically. So that was me. And if you see the fact that I'm not crying and you wonder why, it's because I've talked about this so many times to a camera. I've talked about this so many times to therapists, like, probably had 6 different therapists since then. So many people in my life. Because it's my greatest regret. And it's just become like somebody else's horrible stories. What's that line from the news, from A Perfect Circle, the someone else's atrocious stories? Like, it really is. And I, of course, feel awful for the person that was killed. I can't imagine being killed by someone you thought you loved and you thought they loved you. It makes, like, while I didn't really have a connection to that person, it hurts to think about. And I'm really sorry to my family for putting you through that without you knowing it. Like, I really was trying to protect you, and I really did have your best interest in mind. And I'm sorry if this is how you find out that this happened. I'm sorry. So, the police put him in jail. They give me a no contact order. They don't actually give me a physical copy of it. I'm working on getting that now. Somehow he gets sentenced to aggravated manslaughter because they can't find the weapon or the outfit he was wearing when he killed the person. So now he's getting out tomorrow. In my opinion, someone who did something like this shouldn't be getting out at all. But, you know, I'm not a judge, I'm not a jury, I'm not an executioner. Not that I honestly would be very anti-death penalty, but he should just be in jail for the rest of his life. Like, that should just be a given. But anyway, so he's getting out, and I'm worried because, like, you know, I spent so much of my life being threatened, my entire life and my family being threatened by this guy. And like I said, thank God they're all over the world now, but, like, for me, it's just, I worry. And I really don't think he would go after my family now that it's, like, he can't. I think he would get to me first. But if I do end up murdered by this guy, I want to make sure they're safe. So, I've done all the things I'm supposed to do. I've installed all the security I should install. I've notified my local police and made a report with them about this guy and the things that he said to me and about my family and stuff. I've contacted all the victims units I can. It just feels like I've been failed a lot by the police department. Because I could have gotten a protection from abuse order if he got a hit out on me, or he attempted to get a hit out on me once he found out, from prison, like a few weeks after this all went down. He was in touch with another inmate, and the inmate agreed to do it, and then went to the cops to get a sentence reduction or something like that. So, because the inmate was about to get out or to get a parole. I don't know how many. I don't know our prison system the way I should. So yeah, he did that, and also on the lead detective in the case. So we could have had that evidence, but they lost it. The detective I work with, I should just say it. The detective I work with there has been very uncooperative. And I mean, it's crazy because I feel like I'm scared to talk about the cops. I'm terrified of police now. Like, in a weird way, I'm glad, like, baby me didn't tell all this to the cops, because if this is the way it would have been handled, it's fucked up, and he's already killed someone, and I can't get any protection or any protection for anybody around me. But basically, like, the protection for abuse order could have been granted if they had a record of him doing that, but no, they just called me and told me at the time, weeks after this happened, by the way, and then, the detective's just been very, uncooperative with me in terms of, like, I was like, can you go dig up that out of evidence, and she was just very rude to me, and, very mean, like, oh, is your life in danger right now, like, oh, I remember that case, but, like, and just, like, acting like it's me that did the crime. I feel like I'm the completely 100% guilty party when I cooperated and I did what I was supposed to do. Maybe I was reticent at first, but I went through all this fucking PTSD, and even now calling the cops to report, like, that I'm in danger is terrifying to me. Like, I'll do anything before I call 911. I will call my significant other. I will call friends and family. Like, to just be like, oh, okay, am I dying? Like, anyway, like, I just don't like dealing with the police anymore, because of this whole incident. And I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who can relate to having shitty experiences with the police. So yeah, can't get a protection from abuse order. Also, they didn't give me my no contact order back in 2008 when it was, it was like the beginning of 2008 when all this happened. So yeah, they didn't give me a copy of the no contact order so I could give it to my local police. I left a voicemail message asking that they give it to me, and honestly, you know, if they see this video, I wouldn't be surprised if I never get a copy. So yeah, that police office has been completely useless and has not helped me out in the slightest. Don't really want to talk about the precautions I've taken since then. Maybe when I'm feeling better about this entire thing I will, but I just don't feel like you guys need to know that, and I feel like if I reveal that to the world, he might come after me. There's another dog trying to get it. But anyway, that's kind of my story. Maybe one day I'll get into how all this led to eating disorders and alcoholism, but, you got it. that's my story. Don't date people who are fucking 4 years older than you if you're like 13 years old. If you're a parent, please do not let your kid date someone. I don't care what you say. Like, what are they gonna do? They can leave the house a little bit, they can run away a little bit, but the cops are gonna bring them back. And this is a new era where, like, you can put GPS tracking on your kids' devices. You can, like, just protect your children. I have children. They're not gonna be able to date until they're 45 because of this incident. But no, seriously, like, just take care of your children, take care of your family, love each other. Love each other. I'm a fucking hippie, but you know what I'm saying. Like, you need to protect each other, and, you know, believe women, believe children, believe people when they say they're being victimized. Like, maybe if there was I wish I had an answer to how this could have been avoided, or how this could have been changed, or how, like, I could have not been put in this situation, but something needs to change. If this is happening to me, like, I can't be the only one dealing with a story like this, a fucking crazy story like this, that when I tell people, they're like, this is a Lifetime movie, this isn't real life. Like, yes, this happened to me, and we need to, like, stand up for the rights of women and children, and, you know, gay people, and people that are being victimized. And we all need to tell our stories, because if we all tell our stories, then, you know, maybe people will say, oh shit, this is common, this is the way it is. Like, you know, I know it was really fucking triggering to talk about, but this is my truth. And, you know, as an alcoholic, they're always saying, tell your truth. This is my truth. So, love you and bye.